here and I was scrolling through some of the stories, and I came across one about an illegal Asian app sharing or handling or hailing program that is operating in Vancouver right now. And I did a little bit of research and just read a few older articles, and it's so blatant how being Chinese in Vancouver gives you a free pass essentially to do whatever you want. Clearly that is now their home, their country. They've taken it over. Uh, you know, Illegal Chinese or Asian ride hailing apps are getting away with, doing illegal shit that they criminalize Uber and Lyft from doing. So, this is exactly what the government does all the time. It overlooks things. It overlooks things that their buddies are doing, the things that the people that are helping them get elected, that are giving them money, obviously, they're going to ignore. And this is just the crux of politics. And it's always going to be this way when you have a lot of power at the very top and you have people able to divvy out the resources, right? You're always going to have these issues when you have the type of government system that we have. It's never going to stop, and you're always going to see this type of stuff. It's very rarely you're going to get some fair and righteous politician in there that's going to do everything fairly, that's going to make sure all companies are following the law. No, they're going to let some companies pass, and then others they won't. They're going to fine. They're going to give them hefty fines, put them in jail. But other ones, they'll look the other way, exactly like these illegal Asian ride-hailing apps. But I'll get into the first article I have for you guys, and I'm also testing out StreamYards here, just to see if I can do some of these videos in private, and then I can show some of the articles, and and later on upload it. So it's not going to be live or something. I could do this live as well. It'd be just as good. Maybe I'll just do that later if this doesn't pan out. But I'll share the first article with you guys. So it says, underground ride sharing companies are raking in 20 million per year, according to the BC Liberals. I've spoken to folks in the industry, and it's the number that they've provided. MLA Jas, or I don't know if you have that's silent J, I don't know. Johal told CTV News Vancouver on Tuesday. He estimates that there are 5 to 7 illegal apps, and one of the biggest caters to those who speak Chinese. They serve customers primarily in Vancouver and Richmond. And the majority of them all speak Chinese. They're all Chinese-based ones, right? But the biggest one also so happens to be Chinese. The people that and demand have gotten ahead of lawmakers, said Johal, who represents the riding of Richmond Queensborough. That's how big the demand is, folks. So we've got to wake up and get things done. So it's funny how they have a lot of tough talk and rhetoric on Uber and Lyft. I'm like, oh, if they come and they fuck over our taxi companies, we're going to make them pay. But when it comes to these Chinese people operating illegally, it's, oh, well, they've gotten ahead of the law, and this just means that we need to catch up to them. We don't need to prosecute these people. It's curious how, and then the NDP, that was a clear shot at the BC NDP, who promised services like Uber and Lyft would be operating legally in the province by now. So, this is what you get when the opposition is another liberal. It's liberals versus the NDP, like the conservative or any type of conservative-minded person is just nowhere in sight, right? It's curious how Mr. Johal has gained such intimate details of the revenues from these illegal ride-hailing operations, said BC NDP MLA Bowing MA, especially given that the BC Liberals were the ones who allowed such services to proliferate in BC. Johal says it's not illegal to have the apps. It's when money is exchanged that the law is broken. So, how convenient. They just write the law specifically like that. So then companies like this can just play ignorant or something, whereas they know Uber and Lyft obviously takes money for their operations. They know it's not a charity service, so yeah, they can't come in there. But these other hailing apps and stuff, they could lie. They could be like, oh no, we're not charging anybody, see, it's just we're allowed to have the app and this and that. The first time MLA also admits he wishes his party had brought in ride hailing when it had the chance. Probably would have introduced it a year later rather than right before the last election. Right. So, I got a couple more articles here from, this recent illegal Asian ride hailing app. There are a few articles that talked about this a couple of years ago, or about a year or so ago, that they've been talking about this issue for a good little while. But I'll share the other article with you here. Mike Smith: Chinese ride hailing thrives in BC despite Uber ban. So at least 7 Chinese language ride hailing apps are doing a booming business, especially in Richmond. Editor's note: this column previously described Go Kabu and other Chinese language ride hailing firms as illegal. In fact, the BC government has said the ride hailing apps themselves aren't illegal, but the drivers who use the apps to get customers are operating illegally and are subject to penalties and fines of whatever, so just a bunch of wishy-washy words and shit. And they're like, oh, well, technically it's not illegal, but they are doing illegal shit according to this law, right? And not that I agree with the law whatsoever. It's bullshit. This is they made these laws specifically to help the taxi companies, because the taxi lobbyists are really powerful, especially in Vancouver and other provinces and stuff. So they want to keep being able to charge people whatever the fuck they want, and harassing people and rejecting rides and not allowing in competition. And they're going to act like they're protecting jobs. So, and back in 2014, with rumors flying that Uber was planning to start operating illegally in Vancouver, John Horgan called for an all-out war against the ride-hailing company. Horgan, then the NDP opposition leader, tabled a private member's bill called the Taxi Industry Safety and Fairness Act. The bill called for the maximum fine against an illegal Uber driver to be quadrupled from $5,000 to $20,000. So online companies should not be allowed to put passengers at risk and undercut our locally owned taxi industry, Horgan fumed. Uber backed down, not surprising when the governing Liberals were also threatening to release the hounds, including undercover passengers, to catch illegal Uber drivers. Both parties are obedient to the powerful taxi lobby. Now it's 4 years later, and Horgan is the premier. Uber is still shut out of the province. So is the rival Lyft app. But at least 7 Chinese language ride-hailing apps are doing a booming business, especially in Richmond. The BC Transportation Minister flagged the following ride-hailing companies in a July 18th advisory notice: Long Mao, Udi, Kwai Chi, U-Drop, Raccoon Go, Go Kabu, Ding Dang, Carpool, and AO Rideshare. So clearly, like, all these are Asian. Enforcement action against these services has not matched Horgan's earlier rhetoric against Uber. So clearly, they get a free pass. They can go and discriminate as well, and only pick up Chinese people. Imagine if there was a ride-hailing app that just catered to Europeans or something and whatnot. People would be losing their shit. But it's okay if they just pick up Chinese and Asian Cantonese speakers, and it's only available to them. And while other companies that would provide and give to English people like Uber and Lyft, well, no, we'll keep them out of the market, allow these people to get ahead of other people, allow them to make a ton of fucking money. That's okay. Their discrimination is totally fine. But just white people, you're not allowed to do it. But these people, totally fine. There are more than 36 drivers advertising on there, said Green Party leader Andrew Weaver. Well, hold on. No. that's at 3 tickets a month. Okay, let's see. After 1 year of NDP rule, the government has handed out 36 infraction tickets with fines of $1,150 each. So that's it as of this year. So, the big talk on enforcing this, but they're only going to enforce it against the companies that they don't like. This is just crony capitalism. That's 3 tickets a month, and the government has not cranked up the fines to 20,000 as Horgan demanded against Uber. The enforcement action seems like a minor annoyance to the businesses which promote their services on WeChat, a popular Chinese social media and mobile payment app. There are a lot more than 36 drivers advertising on there, said Green Party leader Andrew Weaver. Try hundreds, and the fines don't seem to deter them. Of the 36 tickets issued so far, none are for repeat offenders. It suggests offending drivers just keep driving without getting caught, or new drivers keep flooding into the legal market. So yeah, there's no re-offenders. They catch them once, that's it. So you can tell there's barely anybody looking into this, enforcing the laws that they create. It's all bullshit. A lot of laws, they're just created with the intention of only being used against a certain group of people and not being used against everybody equally, right? Now the government says ride-hailing won't be legalized until 2019. But Uber and Lyft will be subject to strict caps on the number of drivers allowed and municipal operating boundaries, the same as taxis. These archaic rules are contrary to the ride-hailing business model in operation around the world. They seem designed to keep Uber and Lyft out of the market, clearing the way for taxi-controlled ride-hailing app called Cater, all while Chinese language apps defy BC's weak enforcement of the law. So, you got these taxi companies run by Arabs, just running the companies like shit because they can. They don't need to treat the people coming into cabs right. Man, I've been in plenty of cabs and shit, and a lot of the guys, they're fine, they're nice and shit, but man, I've heard some pretty horrible stories from women in cabs, and I've had a couple bad interactions and stuff, and yeah, they can be dicks because there's no competition in town. They can be like, no, I don't want to take your, it's too far, sorry. But if they had competition, then they would have to step up their game. Then they would have to reduce their prices. But, you got dumb idiot liberals that are like, we need to protect our industries. These cab drivers that only hire other brown people. How many white taxi drivers have you encountered recently? I've encountered like 2 in my entire life. Okay. So I think there's a little bit of nepotism that goes into that industry, or maybe these people, they're just great at driving. They're just way better than everybody. That explains it. You know what I mean? It's like, all these other groups, they're allowed to be nepotistic, racist, discriminatory, but the only people are not able to are white people. The government's hypocritical approach to the Chinese language services is just the latest example of the NDP's continuing ride-hailing failures. Now the government says ride-hailing won't be legalized until 2019, but the Uber and Lyft will be subject to strict caps. All right, so that's one of the articles here. I got another one I want to share with you guys here. Let's see here. Legal ride hailing. No, that's I think this is the one. Is this the one? Yeah, okay. So Vancouver is awesome. I don't know why that's there, but illegal Chinese rideshare firms still booming on the black market. So ride sharing services continue to operate in the black market in Richmond as the BC government announced it would not legalize them until 2019. Although the NDP, prior to last year's election, promised to have ride-sharing services in place by the end of 2018. So they just pushed the timeline back. Instead, the province will increase the number of taxis in BC by 15%, an increase of 500. So, oh yeah, we said we were going to legalize it. We're gonna add more taxis because that's going to solve the problem. According to the BC Ministry of Transportation and BC Taxi Association, 7 illegal car sharing businesses are currently operating in Metro Vancouver. So it's kind of funny, though, too, how these, 2 companies that are screwing people over essentially. Well, like, the Asian companies are not necessarily screwing people over, but they're not getting prosecuted like other companies would. So they're getting, a lot of money that other companies, that competitors could be getting, etc. That is bullshit, right? But they're not exactly like this company, like the taxi association. But it's funny to see them go after each other because they're like, oh, they're cutting into my business, and either company to me is kind of bullshit, right? But I would be fine with Chinese people just delivering services to Chinese people if I was allowed to discriminate as well as other companies allowed to compete in the market. But that's not the way it's happening right now. Uber and Lyft are being kept out while only all these Chinese companies can just operate willy-nilly, and only like 1%, a fraction of the percent of their people will ever be caught every year. So, and they'll get a little slap on the wrist. In fact, in July alone, the ministry has issued, I read something like that, most of the apps operating in Richmond, such as Lung Mao, Udu, whatever, Koba, blah, 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 are in the Chinese language. Customers can order pickup services through the company's account on the Chinese messaging app WeChat. A news reporter tried to order a ride on one of the services, and almost 20 cars in Richmond showed up on the map, with one driver accepting the order within a minute. So I guess all the people in Vancouver have a hard time getting a taxi today. Just know all the Asian people there, they're getting rides like that, and they're getting it in like luxury vehicles too. There's another story I have where they're talking about that. For a ride from Lansdowne Station to Stevenston, prices range from $16 to $19, while a regular taxi costs around $23. And it's worse. They don't have like leather seats like some of these cars. You might get raped. Udi Kuach has expanded beyond these Chinese platform in April, launched an English app in the Apple Store. Raccoon Go also provides services such as a designated driving and food or item delivery. So these companies are expanding, making tons of money, while other companies are kept out of the market because they're not Chinese. You don't have Asian privilege. So I'm sorry, man. You're white, you're this, you're black, whatever. You're not going to get the special privilege. But we see who's running Vancouver. We see it belongs to them now. It's their place now. In addition, Richmond businesses, perhaps recognizing the increasing popularity of the apps, advertise on some of the ride-hailing platforms. So they're like, oh, now we can go and advertise there too. Oh, great. I got one more article I want to share with you guys. It talks about kind of just the amount of money that they're making. So in Vancouver, let's see here. Yeah, this is the one. So this is from BNN Bloomberg. In Vancouver, North America's biggest Uber holdout, it pays to know Chinese. So it's the white BMW luxury sedan glides up to a Taiwanese noodle shop in a Vancouver suburb, hailed courtesy of a Chinese language app. The 8-minute ride in its spotless leather interior is smooth, cheap, and utterly illicit. Welcome to Vancouver, one of the Uber's most obstinate holdouts, the largest North American metro region without legal ride sharing, where underground services for Chinese speakers is thriving. Fleets of vehicles, often fancy ones at that, ferry passengers around the city and its suburbs, but to access them, you need to navigate a Chinese app and preferably speak Mandarin or Cantonese so the drivers don't think you're a cop. So... so yeah, that just means no white people allowed. No people of other races. You got to be Asian. But is this discrimination? So they can operate illegally and they can discriminate. Fucking Asian privilege, man. That's what it is. But people want to bitch and moan and shit about white privilege continuously. But Did Elizabeth Warren say she was a Polish person, or a Ukrainian or German? Did that get her into a teaching position at Harvard? No, it didn't. She said she was Aboriginal. So, there's a lot more minority privilege, it seems like, that's going around lately, as opposed to this supposed white privilege, right? Fleets of vehicles, often fancy ones, blah, blah, blah. So they're getting, around these fancy, nice vehicles too. Our goal isn't the Chinese market. Of course, we'd rather have a larger market. All Canadians, says Danielle Zhao, finance director at Kabu Group, whose ride-hailing platform Kabu claims to hold an estimated 90% of the share of the market and has an English service ready to go. Other services, there have been as many as 18 at one point, go by the names of Langmao and Udi Kachao, right? So yeah, I'm sure he wants to make more money. Most people, they care about green, but currently, the only people that are going to be able to benefit from these ride-hailing apps are going to be Chinese speakers, because they're the only people who are going to get a free pass from participating in these things. People start using Uber, the people involved in driving and taking a ride they're not going to get a slap on the wrist like these people. But British Columbia Premier John Horgan's government passed legislation last fall that was supposed to pave the way for ride sharing this year. 7 years after Uber Technologies Inc. first tried to crack the Pacific Coast province, but the way the law is crafted, Uber fans and English speakers may have to wait longer for a broader rollout if it ever happens at all. So, they can say, oh yeah, we want to give to everybody and we're not, discriminatory, etc. But it doesn't really matter, because they're not going to get English speakers are still going to be fucked anyways. Driver cap. We know that people are frustrated and have been waiting for too long, Transportation Minister Claire Trevina said as she announced the milestone legislation. Maddening, maybe more apt description legislation could allow the Provincial Passenger Transportation Board, to cap the number of vehicles, restrict the areas in which they can operate, and set the rates they can charge. In other words, to regulate ride sharing so that it looks more like the dysfunctional taxi industry it already oversees. So, they want complete government control over it, that the companies won't even want to come in to begin with. And then companies that are operating illegally, like these Asian ones, are going to get a free pass. They're not going to have to follow the same regulations and restrictions. And then later on, CBC is going to write articles about how, look at all these Asian immigrants, how wealthy and great they are, how much money they're making. These poor people, how, look at all the industry they're making with all these ride-sharing apps. Well, how do they get to the top of the top? Oh, how did this happen? Oh, well, all of their competition was kept out, and they were able to do things illegally. While other people aren't allowed to do things. And like I said before, the laws are bullshit. They shouldn't even be in place. But, all these laws that get put in place, like I said, they're just meant for certain groups of people. That are people, they can do whatever they want. Maddening may be more apt. At present, a cab taking a passenger from one Vancouver suburb to another can't pick up a customer on the return trip unless it's also licensed in the drop zone. So you have to be licensed to be able to drive somebody to somewhere else. Like, that's just ridiculous. Getting licensed across the region of 2.5 million people would mean getting scarce, costly permits from 21 different municipalities. Vancouver International Airports restrict which taxis can operate at the terminal, with its own permits starting at $3,100 a year. So, they got all these permits, like you can't drive here from here unless you get a permit to drive here. Everybody just dipping their hands in the cookie jar, and they're, do we really need this? All of these regulations, they put these things and these permits on purpose to keep the prices high, to keep competitors out, to keep people like you and me from just driving somebody to this place, starting your own little business and be like, yeah, I can work out the profits and be like, hey, I can do this for way cheaper than these people and still make lots of money. Well, they don't want that. They want the government to come in and say, no, you need a permit to do that. Unless you're driving your kids to hockey, it's illegal for you to pick anybody up and drive them and take like a little bit of money. That's oh, we're just doing this to protect you. That's their excuse, right? That balkanized governance structure has saddled Metro Vancouver with a taxi nightmare. In summer months, when cruise ships dock at the harbor, flagging a cab downtown becomes next to impossible. Drivers facing little competition refuse rides that take them beyond their home zone, or from customers wanting to pay by credit card. In early February, hundreds queued for cabs at the airport during a rare Vancouver snowstorm, including shivering children dressed in sandals after trips to warmer climates. So, and that's the thing. These cabs, they're just like, fuck you. Fuck you. We don't need to pick you up. Who cares if you're freezing in the cold? I'm in my nice warm vehicle. We have no competition. There's no incentive for us to do anything for you, to pick you up. There's no competition that's going to take our money from us. You have to deal with us, right? That's why competition is good. And this is why incentives matter. All that matters in society, oftentimes, is incentives. People, you can't depend on their better natures to take over. You have to have incentives in place, or you remove the negative incentives that are in place from the government and just allow, just nature to take its course, essentially. We would all be a lot better off. We wouldn't have to go through the things we are right now. But two ride-sharing giants have already indicated that they just move on to more hospitable markets, given the new slew of regulations. So, you got all these big companies, now leaving these competitors who could bring down the prices. Fuck it. There's too many regulations. Fuck this shit. And now the taxi companies can keep doing wherever the fuck they want to. We've never entered a market with all these things in place. Joseph Okpaku, Lyft Inc.'s vice president of government relations, told lawmakers in the capital Victoria in January. Uber, which is slated to join Lyft with an initial public offering this month, says the rules could prohibit ride sharing through regulations. Uber's business manager to Western Canada said in an email. Thriving business. So against that backdrop, Kaboo and its Chinese language competitors are thriving. Xiao says users' demand has been growing on average 26% per month since Kaboo started in 2016. So, if you see from the first article I talked about, Horgan in 2014 talked about, keep these companies like Uber and Lyft out. But these people have been operating since 2 years after 2016. They just keep growing, and they're being ignored. Reams of data it collects reveal that the greatest demand is for short last mile journeys that patch the gaps in Vancouver's spotty public transit networks. So you got all these Asian people. I'm not saying hate Asian people for this, but they all get ride sharing in Vancouver. They all get the ability to get between areas and places really fast. Think about all the opportunities that opens up, the job opportunities, possibilities. Be like, oh, okay, I don't have to take the metro. I don't have to know, instead of a 30-minute journey, I know it's only going to be a 10-minute journey because I have all these options, these possibilities, right? Now I can take maybe work a little bit further from home because I can have a reliable, dependable ride hailing service. So that opens up more opportunities that other people who have to use the shit system don't have. It's Asian privilege. There is commentary on the fact that we have not been able to move fast enough, says Jas Jalal, an opposition Liberal Party maker on ride sharing committee. The market has moved ahead of the government. So I already read that a little while ago. And it's like, it's once again, it's just saying, oh, well, we're not going to prosecute these people. We need to do some changes quickly and allow them to come in, only regulate Uber and Lyft. Whereas if it was other people doing it and not the Chinese people or Asians, they'd be like, oh, we need to fucking fine and put these people in prison. Regulators are taking some steps to crack down on illegal rides, issuing 43 violation tickets and 32 cease and desist orders at the end of February. The Minister of Transportation said in an email, currently drivers can face a $5,000 fine per day for convicted penalties. The new legislation will raise the stakes significantly to $100,000 a day. Okay, so we all know that, as we see already with what I've showed before, it was only 36 or 32 people were charged with anything, and they only paid about $1,100 per fine, which is just a slap on the wrist. Canada's Competition Bureau has weighed in, telling the province to rethink provincial taxi regulations. So has local billionaire Francesco Aquilini, owner of the Vancouver Canucks National Hockey League team, sparring on Twitter with the airport authority when it urged a level playing field for existing operators. Saskatoon has freaking Uber. Come on, Vancouver. That's kind of like a dig at Saskatoon too, you know? Even Saskatoon has fucking Uber, you know? Yeah, fuck Saskatchewan. No, I'm kidding, guys. I love you. Come on, Vancouver. Read a post on the Facebook group, Bring Uber to Vancouver, last month. Public opinion polls have consistently shown that 60% support for ride sharing. So yeah, the populace, we all support it, but doesn't matter. It's what the politicians want, what the lobbyist, who pays them. That's what matters. For a tourism, technology-driven city that aspires to be Silicon Valley North, the opposition to ride sharing can often be head-scratching. I don't support Uber at all, the mayor of Surrey, British Columbia, Doug McCallum, said in a live debate in October as he campaigned against the ride sharing. Surrey is a sprawling suburb that's the heart of the powerful taxi industry lobby. At its peak, a Vancouver taxi license was worth as much as $1 million, and drivers were mortgaging homes to purchase them. So, you know, like, look at the taxi industry itself. You know, it's a highly regulated market. You know, these licenses, like, people are mortgaging homes to get these licenses, which obviously are worth a lot. If you're willing to mortgage your home to do it, then obviously you know you're going to be making bank from this shit. So, you know, yeah, they don't want that threatened whatsoever. So clearly there's lots of money being given to politicians to stop this, to stop any type of cheaper services being provided for Canadians, right? You know, same with the supply management. You know, I know some people, well, what about whatever? You know, it's not good for prices. Same with this. We want to be Alipay of Canada, blah, blah, blah. Or Kabu has signed 1,800 drivers, averages 2,500 rides a day, and has rolled out food delivery services, right? So, you know, these people are making bank while other people are not. And you just see this, like I said, it's Asian privilege. It's them that are allowed to do this, not us. And increasingly in the future, you're going to see more and more of this type of stuff in Canada. But that's all I pretty much wanted to cover for today. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this type of setup that I had. I'm using Streamlabs right now, and maybe I'll do more things like this in the future, or next time I'll just do it live. That would just be good too. But take it easy, guys, and have a good day. See ya. Enjoy yourselves.